Brodes Media.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on into a Football Friday here on Sports Talk with Brodes. So when I woke up this morning, I woke up at 3 a.m. on the dot. I took a shower, I had a cup of coffee, and I headed into the radio station, and I was not expecting to get hit with a Nick Sirianni might get fired piece. I was going to go in a completely different direction. And then Jeremy Fowler of ESPN put out his Week 18 nuggets. And in those nuggets, it says this. Nick Sirianni has quieted the preseason noise with the Eagles' 13-3 season. Would a first-round playoff exit reignite talks about his job status? It's hard to say, but it's a question that some people around the league are wondering. Wow. Now he goes on to continue. He doesn't have a contract extension in place. And because the sideline and on-field spats are sort of hard to ignore, also factoring in the 2023 campaign and how bad it got. He goes on to say, though, and this is important, that any firing here would be a sizable upset. So it's not a favorite. But if he is going to talk about surprises, this could be one that's on the list. And at first, knowing how controversial Nick Sirianni was, I wondered if this was so outrageous that even those people would have to admit there's no legs to this. I was wrong. I was wrong. I heard it all day. Nick is a male cheerleader who does nothing. Nick Sirianni should go because that would be 3 of the 4 years without a playoff win. Yes, the Super Bowl appearance, which didn't result in the trophy. And look, I'm just playing their side. I disagree with their side. There's no way in hell Nick Sirianni should be canned if there was a weaker playoff run upon us. But this is the side they take, and they feel strongly about it. And I understand feeling strongly about the Nick Sirianni hate because I was once there. But now, I think once you realize that here we go again, we have an NFC top contender under Nick's ability to build a team. That's what he does culturally. Emotionally, he builds a real winning atmosphere. Oh, here's another one that we constantly get hit with. And I was there once, but I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I understand now what Nick Sirianni does so well. I'm seeing it. It's elite. He might not be a good strategic X and O. You got the sexy Sean McVay playbook. But what Sean McVay does so well in his playbook, he does with people. He knows how to manage people and get 53 men on the same page for a common goal. Even through hardships when one can go get an all-time rushing record. And then I hear Jordan Mailata say, hey, I respect Nick Sirianni's decision. He's the head coach. He's got respect. When you got the room, the way Nick Sirianni does right now, when he dips into his strengths, he's elite when it comes to the room. And I keep hearing that Howie built that. Nick's the head coach. There's enough stuff to look at here, okay? There's enough sort of on his resume at this point to see the value that is. Now, let's get back to sort of the argument made of not winning playoff games 3 of his 4 years. because on paper, it does look nasty. And if I am going to give all the appreciation in the world for being a top contender in the NFC, if you are losing after that in an early round exit, as this hypothetical brings up, then he's not providing his best when the game is on the line here and the season's on the line. And he's coming up short. It would mean that. There's a difference, though, between putting the pressure on, because the way I look at it is it would be extremely disappointing, obviously. And it adds massive pressure for 2025 for him to really prove it. That's what it would set up. That's what I think a fair expectation is. But it wouldn't be the now. It wouldn't be your ass is gone. I'm not giving up on you, even if there is some growing to go on. Nick Sirianni, 4 years at his age, just because you were to have some bad moments, especially in the early parts of your coaching tenure, who's to say that's who you are forever? If anything, don't you think Nick Sirianni is probably more accepted and more, maybe accepted's the wrong word, but he's more willing to sit down and accept advice, accept information, accept looking in the mirror and saying, I got to change this because it's constantly forcing us to come up short. He will adapt. He can still get better as a coach. He doesn't stay a failure forever. People normally do fail before they take 1,000 steps forward and reach a championship or reach what you want to be or reach maximizing yourself. So just because he may have some areas to clean up, the Nick Sirianni Foundation, I'm willing to give him more time and willing to see what he can do when he sees what made them fail and he goes back to the drawing board, because more times than not, whenever he had to question things that he was doing, whenever he did go back to his coaches and meet with them and talk with them and figure out exactly how they can iron out the kinks, he's gotten it right more times than not. He got it wrong in 2023. He got it right how many times in this one particular season? So that's why I also think it would be silly, because I project, as anybody does who puts as much time as Nick does into his craft, he's only going to improve from this. Even if he brings us to another Super Bowl run, he'll even learn if he wins. He'll even learn. He seems to be that guy. He doesn't stop talking about his reading, and he's reading all these novels and all these books and all these biographies about leadership and how he can improve and how he can sell his message better and how can he install the belief in the men. And he does. I heard Jalen Carter, someone who is still very raw in his own right being a pro. He literally was injected with the Nick Sirianni talk since he's been here, that when he's giving media press conference stuff, he's saying Nick Sirianni's core values because it's installed in them and it's a way of living. It works. You can't be great without the greatness of others. Quote, end quote. That's Nick Sirianni to a T. That's Jalen Carter when he expressed how awesome it was to be a Pro Bowler and to get the nod and what it means to have these teammates. Where do you think that comes from? So, yeah, I just went on a little rant about how much Nick Sirianni deserves to keep his job, even if there was to be a little hiccup this season. I don't even want to speak that into existence, but listen, would a first-round playoff exit? Reignite talks about his job status. It's hard to say, but it's a question some people around the league are wondering. And you know what? There's two ways you can look at this. Was this somebody around league circles who wants Nick Sirianni's seat to be hot? That was something I heard from Elliott Short-Parks when I was able to interview him earlier this morning. And he's like, yeah, you know what? People like the Eagles, all right? People would love to work under Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, it puts you in a great position to succeed. If you're a head coach compared to, let's say, I don't know, the New York Jets or the New York Giants. So if that is the case, is someone trying to start the slow burn because they got their eye on the prize? And I'm not saying Louis Riddick did this by any means, and his name's been mentioned with the Jets, but you know that he's always sort of had his view on the Eagle. I'm not saying it's him, but I'm saying there are people where hey, they're waiting. Like Louis Riddick, we knew was waiting, and we knew felt a certain type of way about the Eagles. That's happening all around. I'm using him as an example. I don't think he'd go to that extreme, and I actually want to see him get a job, and I'm fascinated to see how he would do, and I think he would be a good hire. So I'm just using that as an example of knowing there's people who would cross the line, people who would sneak that stuff out there, people who would do anything because the job is so hard to get. There's only so many of them. They're staring at it. The other flip side would be is Howie Roseman leaking this so it's known. Yeah. By the way, Jeremy Fowler, big name. I got something for you. Nick doesn't have a contract extension. We would have extended him prior to the season if we were all bought in. But 2023 scared us, and we got to see where this goes, because if he doesn't win a playoff game, then that resume isn't that pretty. I don't think it's that. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek, if I'm being honest. There's probably a 0% chance that that's where my line of thinking is. It probably is the latter. Or no, the one before the latter. No. The one before the latter. I don't know. I think it's nuts. I really do. I think it's absolutely insane to even consider with a loss early in the playoffs that he needs to go. It would start that heading into next season. This is the year you better do something and do something serious. And next year, if it was to happen again, then I am 1,000% having the conversation. I'm having the conversation. Doesn't mean I'm 1,000% saying yes. I'd have to see all the context in the world. But you could sell me it with another year under his belt of seeing something similar. More so than now. You don't realize 13 wins. With the chance to win 14 with Tanner McKee against the Giants. So, it's not 9, 10, 11 wins, and you're the scrappy little Tampa Bay Bucks. You're the scrappy team, the Seattle Seahawks. This is, all right, you were the number 1 seed in the NFC in 22 and just came up shy. Now, you're right underneath the Detroit Lions or Minnesota, depending how this thing finishes, with a high seed in the NFC where you're in the jump above the good teams. There's always good teams, competitive teams. You're sort of in the mix and in the category of the team that has a real chance to contend for the Super Bowl. Being in that tier consistently, it needs to be valued. And that's what Nick Sirianni does bring. So, you want to hear some audio? Let's listen to Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio, who will always be honest, who will always say the truth, who will always tell you how he's feeling. Here's Vic Fangio. Sorry, I played it a second too early. Here's Vic Fangio on the job that Nick Sirianni has done.
And having these guys prepared mentally and emotionally, done a great job leading the staff. You know, he's got good messages every week, you know, tailored to the team we're playing and tailored to us as a team. I think he's done a fantastic job.
Vic Fangio has been around and seen so many coaches, a billion coaches, different ways of doing it, old coaches, middle-aged men, younger coaches now. I don't think he's just giving you blah. I don't think he's just selling you crap. No, maybe he wouldn't go so far as he stinks if it was somebody that he felt very passionately about who does stink. I said he's honest. He ain't going to keep it honest to that level. But I don't think he'd go out of his way to praise the way that he has the team emotionally and physically ready and all, because I watch the team play every day. The product on the field tells me that everything he's saying perfectly describes this unit. That's how they go. That's how they attack. They look inspired. They look led by a man who does have them emotionally and physically ready to compete more times than not when they take the football field. And I know the Saquon thing has been discussed for way too many days now, and it's annoying. But I can't stop harping on the fact that if you had to put different personalities in the same exact position, it gets ugly probably 480 times out of 500. Why did I pick those numbers? I have no clue. But it's not a cruise operation and a smooth operation that cruises without any bumps and bruises along the way it did under the Nick Sirianni way of going about it. And it's because he'll casually pick up the phone and talk to the guys on a Wednesday for an hour, driving into the NovaCare complex, sitting in his car and his SUV, whatever he's driving. I don't know what he drives, but he's sitting there with this, hey, yo, Saquon, what's up, dude? How was the family last night? Yeah, what did the kids have to do? I was dance class. He gets to know them on such a deeper level that when you are put into a position that stinks, the way that having to tell Saquon that he's not going to go get the record, there's a relationship there that is extremely important. And I see that with the way that they have responded to Nick every time he's been in an awkward position. But he's got that room, man. He's got that room big time. Here's Kenny Pickett, someone we don't hear from a lot. So I thought it was interesting to sort of talk about the way this organization has been. Remember, he's been with Mike Tomlin. He's been with the Pittsburgh organization, which is a great organization, but I don't think it's necessarily ran with the same ship of Nick. And look, Mike Tomlin's resume speaks for itself, and I think Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach. There's different ways of going about it, and there's different ways that you can have success. Take a listen to Kenny Pickett on the way we do it here, though, under Nick.
It's very much a college team feel here. Everyone cares about each other, and when the ball gets spotted, we're going to leave it all out there. Put it on the line for each other. So that's incredibly special. It's not like that everywhere. So extremely grateful to be here.
All right, so you may hear that first and think, oof. You may hear that first and say, but this is professional football, Brodes. We don't want it to feel collegey. We're in a different era now. These athletes are brought up differently. They're treated differently their whole years. We're now at the point where the pro athletes, it's not the old school guys or the vets. Like, these guys have been coddled all the way. It's just different. So it's not going to be the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick way of thinking. It doesn't have that business mode feel. And it worked for Tom Brady. There's a way to have success in this new era with this style and still have successful winning. And when he says it has a college feel, he's, in my way of thinking and the way I interpret it is, it's more about like a brother. The locker room matters. And in pro sports, it's not always that way. It's not about the guy sitting next to you. It's not about how everybody's feeling on a Wednesday when your coach calls to check in because they really care about you. It's, hey, I got to fight for my job. Hey, I got to make sure I don't get canned. Hey, I got to work for my next contract without the thought of others in mind. Yes, there's always a marriage. Yes, there's always a balance. I want to get paid and make sure my family's right. But hey, I love you, Lane Johnson. I love you, Mailata. I love you, Cam Jurgens. I'll do anything for you and your family. That college feel of it's more than just football in professional sports. Sometimes it's so about the business that you lose that bond. And the Eagles don't lose that bond. It's Jalen Carter. We love you and want you to be a Pro Bowler and maybe an All-Pro for years and years and years in a row. Hey, Quinyon Mitchell, we love you and we want you to succeed. Not everybody wants their teammates to succeed. And the reason the want to is there, and you're probably sick of me saying it already, but it's Nick. And look, it's funny because it's January 3rd, 2025, and this may be my third or fourth Nick Sirianni appreciation post this week, okay? It's a complete turnaround from where I was. But I'm not just going to stick my feet in the mud and say I felt strongly about him one way before without really cleaning my eyes off and seeing what his ability is. What he does when he maximizes Nick Sirianni. There's something special about it. It's different. It's unique. It's not the way that everybody does it. And he's not perfect. And there's probably going to be times where I still criticize him because he definitely still has areas to clean up. But it's about his foundation. And I always wondered why Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman would ever go this path. And it's more than just, well, they want someone who they can control because, yes, they're never going to go back to the Chip Kelly ways and Doug Peterson. It's the same thing. So they always have the structure going. What makes Nick Sirianni great? What makes him special? This. So to tie it back together with the Jeremy Fowler stuff before we talk about the Jalen Hurts concussion protocol, what a first-round playoff exit, Reignite talks about his job status. It's hard to say, but it's a question some people around the league are wondering. I think it would be nuts. I think it would be absolutely insane to do something like that after this season, even if there was to be something ugly. I'll be mad. I'll be angry. I'll be disappointed. I'll be talking about why. And it's not going to happen because I feel strongly about this team being a juggernaut. We can apply pressure to him and blame him for certain things that he would be in control of and that would fall under his duties if they were to have a slip up. But there's a difference between kicking somebody out of your organization and saying, I don't believe in you anymore, and saying, yo, dude, I am devastated. This is unacceptable. This can't continue. Let's go. You got time to prove it. Let's go. This is it. We're giving you that time right here. Let's go. Two totally different views. And by the way, a first year losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the road with a first-time head coach in Nick and Jalen just getting his bearings going as a starting quarterback in the NFL, I actually think the first year was a positive. I don't think I look at that as a negative. I actually see that as a positive. Being on the road, headset on, that's a good amount of experience to gain. All right. So, bookies.com/Brodes. We all sports bet, but there's nothing better than having fantastic sign-up bonuses and a bunch of odds ready to go so you can maximize your cash and maximize your bets. What if I told you bookies.com/Brodes, which the link is down below in the description. When you click that, you have the ability, you ready for this? To see at your fingertips all the sign-up bonuses that are smacking you right in the face and begging you to take advantage of. Do not be a fool. Make sure you check it out. And also, light beer is the best beer, baby. DrinkGarageBeer.com is also a beautiful website to go check out because when I tell you, you don't have that IPA taste, it is 0% IPA. It's 100% light beer, and it's 1,000% quality. I'm telling you, Garage Beer is the best beer to ever touch my lips. Make sure you check out Garage Beer. Okay. So, a couple notes on the Jalen Hurts front. This is the way Nick Sirianni described it in his presser and said it this way with a purpose. Quote, he's progressing through protocol. Now, what that tells me is, okay, maybe there is a bit of advancement, but it's so tiny that they're not even going to give us a step forward. He's progressing. Well, if he had another step forward in the process, really, I think you'd get more than he's just progressing. It was so methodically stated that way, and it was repeated, and I think the tone and delivery, how I interpret it is, yeah, listen, this thing is a work in progress, and it is moving at a snail's pace. They probably would have assumed by now that he could at least be on the sidelines for practices, but we don't even see him anywhere, and he's barely getting moved in the protocol stuff. It's like, nuts, come on, let's go. But I want him to be healthy. I want him to be right. It's scary that it's taking this long. Am I hitting any sort of panic, though, before a playoff game? Not yet. It's got to burn into next week and flow into next week before I get anywhere even close to that. So by no means am I on panic mode watch, but maybe it's not too far away. It's not too far away. Next week is going to tell us truly the bigger story. And I would expect after what? It's already been maybe 13 days or so of him sitting there, a couple more days. I'm not a doctor. So I just don't think it's moved much, even though he used the phrase progressing. Strange. Strange that it's been this slow, but how about this question? Is there any fear of rust? And the Eagles have started out so slow in the first quarters, even through the beginning of, when they started turning things around and when they started to win and got into the middle of the season a tad. Now, if Jalen Hurts doesn't play for 3 weeks, and not only is he not playing, but he's coming back from a concussion that seemed to knock him out for a bit of time. It's not just physically, it's mentally as well. Are there concerns about that? I'd be lying if I said no. I've been trying to find ways for me to fully go out there on a limb and say, no, I'm not there yet. But then I would just be lying. I am sort of wondering what it's going to look like, but there's nothing you can do about it. And the concussion part of it is why I feel this way. If it was just rest and he's been good and he can practice and he can be studying film nonstop and he's all locked in and I'm going to destroy you mode, right? Like that type of fucking fire that he has and his determination to go annihilate a Green Bay team, let's say, and he's putting in all the time and effort and there was no concussion and he took 3 weeks off physically, I wouldn't be where I am now saying, I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit more shaky than I want to admit. It's due to the concussion more than not. I don't know what else you can do, though, other than have faith that maybe it can be as great as it was against the Washington Commanders before his head got hit. Because there was something unreal going down every single time they got the football. It was nonstop. Nonstop. I thought they'd put up 40 by half. Could it click after a drive or two against a Green Bay team that's battling with some big news about some big-time defensive players? End of the season for them. What else do I got here on my little bullet points? I'm actually excited to see McKee. I'm excited to see some guys like maybe Jalix Hunt get some run. I want it to be a situation where we get a little something out of it. And I don't think that's crazy. Tanner McKee went on the record about how people say it's meaningless. This is my livelihood. This is it. This is the time I got to shine. So he's acting as if it's the Super Bowl. Tanner McKee is approaching this game like it's the Super Bowl. And there's going to be others who do that too. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be the biggest story in the world. But for Week 18 and knowing what my mentality is going to be when I sit down and watch the game with my daughter in the man cave in just a couple of days here. I lost my train of thought. Oh, my mentality. Yeah, I think it would be something that, I don't know, to watch for. McKee, Jalix Hunt. I don't know. I've been thinking of pulling up this practice report for the last 45 seconds, the injury report, and that has disallowed my brain from working. So honestly, I have no idea what the hell I was just saying. And that's okay. The interesting part of the injury report for Friday was Saquon Barkley was on here with rest. Limited practice, though, and doubtful. Do they do the switcheroo? Do they do the little switcheroo? No. Just to keep Saquon moving. But yeah, there were a lot of guys. Here's who did not practice. A.J. Brown, knee/rest. Jalen Hurts, concussion/left finger. Kenny Pickett with the ribs. Devontae Smith, wrist/rest. That was did not practice. And then a bunch of rests. Zach Bond, Mekhi Becton, Blankenship, Jalen Carter, DeJean, Dickerson, CJ GJ. Here's another part for Nick Sirianni and his ability to lead. Did you hear the way CJ GJ responded to getting kicked out of those games? And he did nothing wrong. The referees are that awful. He did nothing wrong. But once it's settled, and once he spoke about how much this team means to him, which was a clear, direct combo that he had with Nick Sirianni, all of it changed, and the BS part of it went away with the refs, and it was less about that and just more about what he means to this group and how he needs to be there for them. Then, by the way, has a couple of interceptions, too, and produced on the football field. It's installed. It is. It's installed in them. That sound weird? I don't know. All right, I'm going to shut up because I'm tired and I'm hitting a wall. You guys are the best in the world. I love you. Thank you so much for all the crazy, wild support. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Also, check me out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Sports Talk with Brodes, 5-star ratings, reviews, the whole thing. It means the world. Thank you guys so much. I love you to death, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Go Birds!